Welcome in, guys, to the Game of Inches podcast. We try and bring you everything we can, all kinds of different sports across every different sport. Today, we're talking a little bit of golf, and you guys know I'm not the guy to do it for you, so I had to bring on someone that knows his stuff. Dubs Anderson, happy to have him with us. And, we're going to talk a little bit about this, a little bit about that, but you know what we're mainly here to talk about, the Live Tour and the change to golf and how things have been kind of progressing or going in the opposite direction. Depends on what side you're leaning. But, Dubs, I see you pretty much everywhere. I see you all over my social media feed. You're on the radio. You're on TV networks. This is the first time we've ever actually spoken. So it's great to meet you. And for viewers, tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, mate. And first of all, thanks for having me on a Game of Inches. Tell my wife that, mate. I'm fighting for everything I've got over here. Happy Tuesday, mate. But look, started as a caddie. Probably 10 years ago back in Australia. Obviously had a very good friend who was #1 amateur in the world. She's like, hey, I'm going to turn pro. We went on, won a couple of tournaments, joined the LPGA tour. We traveled across, I guess, the world, brought me here to the US. Been here for 10 years, jumped on a few different bags, got involved on the TV side of things. And a few years ago, I'm like, hey, we got to make something happen there. The punting, the sports betting, if you don't know, well, it's probably similar for the folks up north. Back in Australia, we grow up gambling. Like, it's just part of your DNA. It's something we've always had. And then a few years ago, sports betting here in the States starts going bananas. I crossed paths with someone. They're like, well, how well do you know golf? I'm like, used to caddy LPGA Tour, PGA Tour. And they're like, do you know anything about sports betting? I'm like, mate, absolute degenerate. So I guess it was good timing. The circumstances were right. And now, give me a clean set of ears. I'm going to tell a few tales to them. Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. And, mate, we're trying to back winners. And your boy Dubsy has been on a decent run. Just patting myself on the back there. I think it's 4 of the last 5, so we're trying to keep it hot. But, mate, remember this time last year, the biggest problem we had in the golf world was Bryson DeChambeau and Brooksy, and who had the bigger biceps. And look at where we are now. Interesting times indeed.
Yeah, I mean, golf is making headlines for people that don't usually watch golf or aren't usually fans of it. If you're a fan of sports, golf is kind of catching your eye. I feel like also, correct me if I'm wrong, but it just in general, as far as playing the game, I've heard, at least here in, Canada, it seems like, and people younger or just any age demographic are getting into golf because it was all we could really do with the social distancing and that kind of stuff. And now watching, I'll tell you what, I've definitely gotten more into the sport, both playing and watching over the last few years personally. But I have to say, you were the first person to make that joke about the name of this podcast here. And we just decided, you know what? We hear it on the TV all the time,
Yeah.
They're bringing the chains out. Sunday Night Football. They're talking about how it's a game of inches. And I feel like it kind of applies to every single sport.
Yeah, it does.
But I love it. I love that humor. So I got to ask you, so have you, because you're on the radio, not just talking golf, you're talking everything. I heard you talking baseball.
Yeah.
So how did you get started with Sportsgrid?
Mate, I guess it was a golf show I was working on. It was on broadcast every Saturday. This was probably about 3 years ago. And I'm like, hey, up and coming sports network, I'll meet with them, see if they want to take the show. And they're like, well, scripted, that's not really our thing. But again, sports betting, the industry, and at the time, the industry was just starting to pick up. Now, here in California, you still can't bet legally, right? Like, I've got to go meet bookies on a Tuesday to either collect or drop off. So it's wacky times. I'm like,
and you've been collecting. I know you've been collecting.
Your boy's been collecting. Your boy's been collecting. We like that. And at the time, like, yeah, these guys could be onto something. And sure enough, I mean, the Sportsgrid network, they blew up. The sports betting industry has blown up. And I mean, golf, as you touched on, the best thing that happened to it was the pandemic. I mean, from an activity side, everyone's getting out. They want to play golf. You see on social media, people, running each other over in golf carts. They're doing trick shots. So suddenly golf has become really cool. And again, what's helped it is that every single week of the year, there's a golf tournament, sometimes multiple golf tournaments like we got this week that you can bet on. And it's not only what it used to be, okay, who's going to win the event, but there's so many good markets now, heads up matchups, round one low scores, prop markets. So I think that's what's really brought the punters in to the PGA Tour, the golf betting. So for me, I'm sitting back saying this has been absolute dynamite. But of course, I'm a sports junkie, complete DJ. And that's what I love about the States. The first time I came to the States, I'm traveling around to all these sort of random little cities. I'm like, okay, I'll go to the sports bar for a couple of cold ones on a Tuesday night. And the bar's packed. I'm like, what's going on here? And they're like, oh, the baseball's going. I'm like, baseball on a Tuesday. The football's on a Thursday. I'm like, what is this about? Back in Australia, we've got sport on Friday, Saturday night. That's it. You've got to wait the whole week. So I'm like, suddenly we can bet every single day of the week. Your boy can stay at the sports bar, get completely loaded on a couple of course lights and try and back some winners. Greatest country of all, mate. They're not getting it twisted. So that's sort of what got me into it. Right now, your boy's still the PGA Tour, the golf, live, whatever you want to do. That's what gets me ticking. But all these other sports, I mean, football's coming up. The college football's coming up. I'm loving me some baseballs out there at the All-Star game last week. Sensational stuff. But just to give a bit of context, Andrew, this is how bad I am with some of these baseballers. I'm at the All-Star, the prospects game, which is all the young guys who are trying to make it into the major leagues. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go down the bullpen and start chirping. So I start chirping this guy, number 56, turn around, you're a cat. Why won't you throw the ball? You're a weasel, get involved. He turns around, the guy's about 60. So I didn't know that the bullpen coach wears the same uniforms as the player, and everyone's looking at me like I'm a goose. So that's what Dubsy's up to, mate. Absolute goose.
Well, it sounds like you're having a good time. And I saw a picture with you with our buddy Sherapan in Los Angeles, and I've seen you making your way around. So it sounds like you're having a great time. And I'm with you as far as, hey, you're a golf guy. I'm known to be a hockey guy in the betting community, podcasting and stuff like that. But we follow other sports. It's not like it's just that sport that you cover. And I know that about you. And that's hilarious. You say that about, betting being available every single day. Hey, everybody's been finding that out this month here in July. They call it the dog days of summer for us handicappers and sports bettors. But there's always something. There's always a little something to bet on here. I want to ask you about really just kind of old-fashioned golf versus kind of what we're seeing now. You've been a golf fan for a long, long time, but would you describe yourself as someone that, likes the trash talk and all that kind of stuff and the Bryson and Koepka and all this and that kind of stuff? Or do you think it's a classy game that deserves to be? Because to me, as a younger person, man, I love that stuff. Same thing with Nick Kyrgios in tennis. Bring it on. Like that's entertainment. Don't be, keep it along the line. But if it brings in viewers, if it brings in new people, I think it's good for the game.
Mate, I'm all for it. I'm traditionalist, right? I absolutely love golf, but we've got to agree, it's still a niche sport. It's still very old school and stuffy. So when we see a beef like that, I'm like, bring it on. And what did it do for the sport? Every day it's at the top of ESPN, these mainstream platforms, and now covering it. They're now talking about it. Now, I do think if we got the two of them in a boxing ring, it'd be an absolute pillow fight. I still think they're all cats, right? They're still golfers. Are they athletes? Well, questionable. Up top, tremendous stuff. But what we've seen from the game of late, a lot of young superstars coming onto the scene, right? 10, 20 years ago, it was Tiger Woods and maybe two or three other guys who could really beat him week in, week out. And you look at the names this year who have come onto the scene: Scotty Scheffler, Sam Burns, Max Homa, Cameron Smith, Justin Thomas, Rory McIlroy. The golf world right now couldn't be in a better spot. And we've got everything going on with the Live Series, but hey, sometimes competition is good for sports. For the PGA Tour, they're going on about, well, we don't want these players to go, hey, mate, it's like when the girlfriend dumps you and she's moved on to the new fella. What can you do? Are you going to pinpoint everything wrong with him, or you're going to get back in the gym and lose a couple of pounds? Let's look at our own backyard. Let's fix the product and get it more in line where golf should be. And look, if it's beef, if it's more entertainment, more excitement, absolutely bring it on. There should be trash talk. And if some of these golfers can't handle getting heckled from the sidelines, get out of here. Go play marbles or something. That was the favorite thing, mate. Back in Australia, I'd be, looping out there on the course, and the fans, the gallery's only, a couple of yards away from you. And I've got very skinny calves, right? Most caddies have got, thumpers on them. I didn't have it. Some of these yahoos would give it to me. Hey, O's caddy, nice set of legs you got there, mate. Nice pins on you once you hit the gym. And what can you do? I can't turn around and engage with them. Otherwise, it's on. I'll probably get ejected. So, mate, absolutely bring it on. Golf needs more of it. And I love what I'm seeing of late.
It's part of sport. It's part of sport. It makes it fun. And hey, I know golf, like, it's a kind of sport where, hey, keep it quiet in the gallery when someone's, about to tee off. But you got to be able to have some heckling, and especially from one player to the next. It makes it entertaining for all of us. What do you think about, how these young, up and coming stars are taking over the sport right now? It seems like every single week, someone that's, under 25 is winning, a tournament. Is that something that's just a new thing? Is it becoming more common? The older guys seem to be struggling. where these new guys are coming in and taking over.
Yeah, mate. And whether it's, because the game's gone so much towards distance, but I'm looking at guys like Cameron Young, right? One of the hottest golfers in the world right now, 25 years of age. I mean, 18 months ago, he's just getting on the Corn Ferry Tour. He goes through there. He's up on the big boys tour now, and they're not afraid to win. It used to be, it'd take you 5 or 6 seasons to really get up to speed on the PGA Tour and then figure out how to win. These young guys, they don't care if it's Corn Ferry Tour, PGA Tour, DP World Tour. If I'm playing in a golf event, I'm absolutely going to try and win it. And that's how they play it. And we've seen the scores reflect that, right? Winning scores are now 23, 24 under par. It suits the young guys who are more erratic. Either go at every pin and get it to 25 under par, win the event, or shoot, a couple over par and miss the cut. And I don't mind that. I like the erratic golfers, especially the way the week in, week out is playing on the PGA Tour. I mean, it's rare that we get a single-digit winning mark. So it absolutely suits the younger guys. And for the older guys, whether they've got the distance, if they're lacking a bit of, fatigue or motivation, it's really tough right now because there's so many good golfers coming onto the scene. But if you're a guy like Stewie, the kitchen sink, still hits it a mile, can still mix it with these young guys week in, week out. But it leads us to the Live Series. If I'm over 40 years of age, if I'm a Ricky Fowler who cannot, maintain my PGA Tour card, why would I not entertain jumping ship to get the bag? For a guy like Ricky Fowler, you've got to imagine he could get 40, $50 million because he has that profile. Can he play, high-level golf anymore? I don't know. I think his best golf's behind him. So I'd absolutely think about, hey, Mr. Greg Norman, give me the bag. I've got a, locked up income for the next 10, 20, for a lifetime, if you will, and let these other young guys beat each other up on the PGA Tour. Because, I mean, we look at an event like this week, the Rocket Mortgage in Detroit. It's a terrible field, but who have you still got to beat? Patrick Cantlay, Will Zalatoris, Max Homa, Cameron Young. It is really tough slogging it week in, week out on the PGA Tour, just trying to make a couple of bucks. And of course, the top guys are making a very good living, maybe $10 million a season. But outside of the top 30, top 40, you're paying your caddy, your swing coach, your physiotherapist, you're bringing the kids around week in, week out. It ain't all gravy.
Well, I'm really happy you mentioned that, and you close with that, by talking about what all goes into it, especially if you're not cracking the top 10, 20, or even winning, every now and then. Tell us about really kind of how everything happened with the Live Tour and really the differences between the two tours right now with the PGA and Live, because to that point that you made, I personally believe that you can't judge somebody for protecting their money, their family, taking care of their sons, their daughters. But I look at it like this. The top guys that have already done that, I think that's where it's a different story. And I think that that's not really, an out there opinion. I feel like a lot of people agree with that because the more research I did into it, and again, I'm not going to pretend to be a golf expert, but the more research I did into this, I realized, holy shit, these guys don't get paid if they, don't make the cut. They don't get paid, to get flown in. They don't get their hotels. They don't get this. They don't get that. The list was adding up for the stuff that doesn't go in favor of these guys if they're not performing at a high level. Whereas with this new tour, hey, we're going to give you a flat rate. Come play some golf. That's what it sounds like to me. Is that correct?
Yeah, and you're spot on, mate. I mean, for the Live Series, it's still a pretty new thing. It's only their third event this week coming up from Bedminster over on the East Coast. And look, I guess it was all formed from Greg Norman, the Shark. He was approached by, the Saudi funds who obviously have, billions of dollars. They're probably going to sink $1 billion into the Live Series this year and not make a penny. But for Greg Norman, I mean, the backstory there, Greg, he's won a couple of majors, but he always felt he was hard done by the PGA Tour. And it was back in the 90s that Sharks said, hey, as golfers, we should be allowed to go and play around any tour around the world. We are contractors. And again, there's no guaranteed income. If you don't play well, if you don't make it through the weekend, you're out of pocket. For your hotels and everything else, you don't get a dime. If you make it into the top 60 over the weekend, okay, maybe you get a check of $5,000, $10,000. That's not really going a long way for these PGA Tour golfers and everything they have to go with. So for Greg Norman, the Live Series, they come along and say, okay, we're going to come up with a new format, a shorter version of the game of golf. We're going to have 3 rounds, shotgun start, so it's a lot shorter product to watch on television. We're going to make it fun. We're going to put music in it. But how do we get these golfers? Well, will give them a guaranteed fee to come over and play. So now these golfers are committed for the next 4 or 5 years. Phil Mickelson, $200 million. Dustin Johnson, $125 million. For some of the young guys, the amateurs who have gone there, they're getting millions of dollars and they've never made a penny through playing golf before because they've been amateurs. So why would they not entertain it? So suddenly we've got some pretty big names over there on the Live Series. Who else we got? Bryson DeChambeau, Paddy Reed, Taylor Gooch, Paul Casey, Lee Westwood, Ian Poulter. Now we've got a really credible field. And for these golfers, how often do they have to travel? They don't have to do 40 weeks anymore. It's 8 events. They know they're getting paid before they get there. And then once they do get there, the purses they're playing for, $25 million. And if you don't have a good week individually, you're now playing a teams event for $5 million as well. I mean, a guy like Pat Perez hasn't done anything for years on the PGA Tour, struggling to keep his card. He goes to his first event. He was okay. His team wins $750,000. He pockets from that. It is ridiculous the money they've thrown at these golfers to do so much less. So I'd absolutely agree with why some of the names would go. And I mean, it's easy for Tiger Woods and some of these other guys to say, but the young guys, don't they want to get down in the mud and earn their PGA Tour stripes and know what a full season is like? I'm sorry, Tiger, as much as he's done for the game, not everyone wants to be hitting the first tee shot at Augusta in 50 years from now. Golf is just, a job for them, especially the guys who are coming out of college. A guy like Taylor Gooch. Okay, it's not everything for me, but I'm really good at it. I can make a living at it. 10, 15 years, then I can retire and do something else with my time. So look, there's been a lot of, hypocrites, armchair experts, if you will, but I see both sides to it. Live Golf, it's certainly not going away. They've just got too much money for the PGA Tour. I think the way they drew a line in the sand saying, if you go, you go. You're not coming back. I don't think that was the right play. Right. Jay Monahan, the commissioner there, I think he could have easily said, good for you, boys. Go and do your thing. You're still going to come back to play in the playoffs. You're going to come to Arnie's place. You're going to play Jack's place. You're going to play the majors. Now, suddenly these guys are still showing up for what? 14, 15 events on the PGA Tour? That's great. That's all we need them for. So I definitely think at some point, and it better be some point soon, that the two parties are going to have to come to the table and say, let's figure it out. For the PGA Tour, okay, Liv, you tell us, what do you want? 8 events? We're going to give you 8 weeks. Go and do your thing. The golfers can come back. Because right now, the way I see it, who's going to lose out? The fans. We're watering down the PGA Tour product, the Live Series. It's not the best, spectacle for the viewers to watch. And now I'm faced with a conundrum this week. I've got 2 events to bet on and watch. I don't think we need it. Golf, as popular as it's become, it's still a niche sport. And if I'm one of the sponsors, I look at the event last week, the 3M Open. If I'm 3M, I'm saying, hey, PGA Tour, we paid a lot of money to be a title sponsor. We're the PGA Tour golfers. This is a C-grade field at best. Give me my money back. So the PGA Tour, they're going to have to be very, very careful. And again, look at your own product. Don't worry about Live. How can we make the PGA Tour better? It's been unchanged for what, 5, 10 years? And now they're going to say, okay, we're going to counter Live by having our own mini event series next year, $20 million prize purses. That's great. Where'd you find the money? Why couldn't we have done this, 5 years ago, keep the players happy? And I guess for Greg Norman, another big motivation behind it is that back in the 90s, he floated the idea of having an independent tour, very similar to what we're seeing from Live. The PGA Tour, they shut it down. They're like, nah, you're not doing it. Then they created the WGC events, which is very similar to what Live's doing now. So they stole Shark's idea, and now he's coming back to say, hey, I will do everything in my power to get this league started. And when you've got a blank checkbook, it's a lot easier than trying to start from scratch. So, hey, here we are. 2 events run side by side this week.
It is unbelievable. And you mentioned the amount of money they're spending on this and the amount they're going to profit in 2022 or 2023. It's very clear. Obviously, they've got so much money to go around. It's not about the money. So kind of the what you just said there about, what the PGA Tour has done and kind of being like almost defensive about it. Do you feel as if them being defensive and not being willing to work with the players and with the Live Tour is very bad for them and they might regret that?
Yeah, and I think they're already seeing, the knock-on effect from that. And they've never really, taken into consideration that the players are contractors, right? And they've always been allowed to play multiple tours, and now they suddenly don't like where the money's coming from. Guess what? None of us like where the money's coming from. Sports washing is a terrible thing, but it's across every sport. It's across the country here in the US. I mean, they put the same fund put $3.5 billion into Uber. It doesn't mean no one's getting Ubers around the city. You know, Live Nation copped a couple of bill from them. Doesn't mean no one's going to concerts anymore. So I think, you know, they're here to stay for the PGA Tour. I think they acted swiftly. I don't think it was the best move from the commissioner. But again, it's an awful spot for him to be in. It's easy for me to say well, they did the wrong thing. I mean, they have been untested for a very long time, a monopoly over professional golf. And now, I guess, I guess the real effects are going to be seen on some of these other tours, like the European Tour, when all their best players are now going to come to the States. What happens to them? I just don't think there's enough high-quality golfers, well, I should say high enough profiles to entertain having 3 different tours running side by side. It's still golf. So we need to figure it out. We can only have one going on at a time because like a split week like this week, the fans are going to feel it.
I think that's a really good point. I think a lot of people don't realize just how hard it is to crack the top 10 in an event like that. I mean, golf is, you know, you look at a sport like golf, you compare it to the NFL, NBA, NHL. For me, I'm the kind of person that can respect every sport individually. I could literally watch any sport. I don't think I've watched them all. I haven't sat down and watched cricket maybe, but I've watched a lot of sports, you know?
Yeah.
And I can respect them all for their, you know, the way they are separately. But you look at these, you know, these guys that are constantly coming top 10, top 5, top 15, top 20, the guys that are struggling to make the cut or just making it over the cut. And people are asking, well, why are they making this switch? To me, those guys, it makes sense, right? But the guys that are getting the flack are the Dustin Johnsons, right? You know, the Phil Mickelsons, those guys of the world that already have that generational money. But who are we to say they can't get more? You know, but I think those are the guys that are really getting the hate. It's like you mentioned, the guys that are down the bottom, the guys that haven't been winning that much are coming top 20. Those are the guys to me that don't deserve to get anybody saying much to them about it. But are you surprised by how many people switched over and how fast it happened? I mean, use the expression C grade, tour and the people that are out there and these sponsors saying, hey, what's going on here? Who are these guys you're putting in my tournament? Are you surprised by how many guys, you know, made that switch so quickly?
I am, and I guess a couple of things come in. I didn't realize that, Greg Norman had this kind of money behind him. When they threw, $200 million at Phil Mickelson, I'm like, okay, that's the one-star name, but who else is going to come into these fields if you don't have enough cash to pay them all? But it seems as though they do. I mean, Brooks Koepka's there. Chase Koepka, his brother, got the bag just for sign. Chase has barely made a cut on the PGA Tour. He has no status at all. So I was definitely taken aback. And I mean, it's moved so rapidly. As soon as recent as a couple of months ago, I'm like, well, let's just wait and see how this plays out. Are they going to have legs? And sure enough, here they are. It's a very credible field. Now, they're still pushing for world rankings points, which is going to be a very big thing for them. If the players can get their world rankings points, they're still going to be able to show up to the majors. But if they don't, a lot of these guys won't be able to play the majors, and they're probably okay with that. We'll still see Mickelson. We'll still see DJ because they've both got that status. There's word that Cameron Smith, who recently won the Open Championship, he's going to bounce with a couple of other Aussies after the President's Cup. He'd still be allowed to play at the majors. So, look, I was taken back by how quickly this thing got steam. One big name went, DJ went, Brooksy went, Bryson went, and then I'm sitting back saying, wow, hold on, this is going to be a game changer. They're not going away. And I think, the way Mickelson first approached it was probably, not well played by him. Now, lefty always has to be the smartest guy in the room. He's a little awkward. He's not the most likable, to tell you the truth, as much as he tries to put on that persona. But if he came out and said, like we saw Charles Barkley, now there's a lot of talk that Charles Barkley may join as an analyst. He's playing in the Pro-Am in New York this Thursday. He said, if they want to offer me $60 million the day of, I'm going. If not, I'm going to stick around, do the NBA talk on TNT. But if he just approached it lefty like Charles and said, it's $200 million, I'd sell my mum for $200 million, who wouldn't? It's about the bag? Okay, right. We get that. But he went on such a rant going after the PGA Tour. They're trying to stiff us. They've never cared about us. So suddenly that upset the PGA Tour from the get-go. Now, I understand Phil's point. When he goes and plays in the match or a non-PGA Tour event, he has to get a clearance, and then he has to pay them out of his pocket $1 million for the right to use his very own image. Now, I don't think that is cool. I think that's the PGA Tour being greedy, and now they're pointing the finger saying, no, it's the players being greedy. So I see both sides to it. But again, Charles Barkley, hey, I'd sell the month for $200 million. I'm going to get the bag. And everyone's like, well, if Charles Barkley said it, yeah, he's a funny dude. It makes sense. So, I think
wouldn't that be something, man? That would be something if Charles.
I can't believe it. But I mean, it's like everyone else, Andrew. 99% of the population would go. I'm getting paid more to do less, to do a similar thing to what I'm doing now. Okay, who's got a moral compass to say, no, I just don't agree with that money's coming from? Sure, there are going to be a lot of people out there like that, but I think the majority would say, nah, where do I sign?
Well, you mentioned this weekend, like there's 2 events, and of course, you and I are both sports bettors. Mostly we're just talking about kind of events right now and the change of the 2 tours. But do you ever think there will be a point moving forwards where you are discussing the LIV more than you're discussing the PGA? Do you ever feel like that could be a time where you're on Sportsgrid networks and the PGA Tour has the backseat?
Look, I think there may be weeks where that happens, but in terms of longevity, no, the PGA Tour is still going to be the pinnacle of professional golf. And I still think they really have a great product. They've just got to make a few tweaks and modernize the game, shorten the schedule, maybe throw a couple other changes in there. But I do think there's going to be some weeks where, this time next year, if I've got the field that we got going to the Rocket Mortgage up against the one in Bedminster from New York this week, I know who I'd rather talk about. The star names, the pedigree, they're playing over on the East Coast this week. So it hurts to say it, but I definitely think in terms of long-term, the PGA Tour, they're not going anywhere. They'll make some changes. They've still got a lot of money, especially coming through the broadcast side, where they can counter what LIV is trying to do. And look, you can't buy prestige. You can't buy history. The names on these trophies, they're still going to belong to the PGA Tour. And I liken it to, say, LeBron James. LeBron, we're going to pay you double to go play basketball in the European leagues. It's a good level of competition. You're getting paid double. Okay, maybe he's going to go, but he's still a competitor at heart. It's not going to mean anything winning a ring over there. He wants to mix it up with the best of the best. And all these young guys we've mentioned, at the top of the show, they're still going to stick around for the PGA Tour for the most part anyway. And the way it's set up, there's no feeder to the LIV Series. There's no Corn Ferry Tour guys coming on the tour. There's no DP World Tour guys coming on to the tour. So the PGA Tour, they've still got that going for them. All the best talent in the world will funnel up here to America.
You talk about you can't buy history. I love what you just said there, because no matter what type of money you're being offered, it's an NBA championship ring, right? Yeah. It's the PGA that everybody's watched all through growing up. That was their goal. And now all of a sudden, well, what's going on here? There's a new tour that's offering quite a bit of money. Just last question really for you about the hypocrite. You talk about, people being hypocritical, and 1 week saying not a chance I would ever join that. And then the next week they end up joining it. Do you feel like it's been kind of you know what? Well, there's actually a decent field now. I'll go. It was kind of like, 5 or 6 guys that were pretty reputable, because I'm sure that I understand that, if I was thinking of doing it, I wouldn't want to be playing, because you talk about it. LeBron would want to play against the best of the best, right? Yeah. So if maybe before LeBron did that, Steph, Giannis, all these guys went over to Europe first, and he said, well, I'll still be playing against some of the best if I go over there. Maybe that could kind of incentivize some of these players, because I feel like that's kind of been the case. Some of these guys are seeing them go over and saying, you know what, it's going to be a pretty good field there as well. I got to love Justin Thomas, though, and Rahm, some of these comments we've seen from them, just saying, I can make another $100 million tomorrow and it wouldn't change my life. Wouldn't that be nice to be able to say? I think we'd all love to be able to say that. But do you think that it's been kind of a follow the leader mindset, or they're all kind of, speaking for themselves?
100%, mate. Follow the leader. And I think that's why they paid such huge amounts for Mickelson and Dustin Johnson early there, to sort of give it a bit of weight. And I think for these other golfers, they're sitting back saying, hey, let's let these first couple take the punches. What's going to happen here? Okay, these guys are getting paid. They're actually having tournaments. They look like they're a bit of fun. Suddenly they're getting a few more names there. Okay, let's jump ship now. And we're not the first guys who are copping all the flack. I definitely think the standard of golf for the Live Series will deteriorate. You know, these guys, if they're only playing 8 events for the season, where's the incentive to practice? If you're getting paid before you turn up, that's the beauty of the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
And I think that's why all these young guys have come on the scene, because they're trying to earn their wins, earn their dollars. But now for the Live Series, okay, you know, I've got to where I am because of I've won certain events. That's what they've paid me on. Do I need to practice? A guy like Dustin Johnson, he's probably on the fishing boat more than he is out in the practice fairway. 8 events for the season, shortened schedule, wacky format. I think those golfers, their standard is definitely going to decline. I can't see any way in which they could maintain or improve their golf game. And on the flip side, the PGA Tour, well, these guys, they're still going to be the best of the best. And we'll see that at the majors. We saw it a little bit at the Open Championship, but if these guys are allowed to keep pegging it up, that's going to be the fade play of the week for us. Any of the live golfers coming into the majors.
The sport has made the headlines. We've been wanting to talk about it with you for a very long time. Happy to have you. I really appreciate your time. And hopefully we can talk some more. I heard you've been making, lots of money, cashing some tickets with these outright winners. We'll get you back maybe hopefully soon if we're lucky for some bets and some picks and all that good stuff. But for today, I kind of wanted to just go over some golf news and really just talk about the sport overall. But again, tell us where we can find you on Twitter and where you can find all your radio stuff.
Yeah, mate, across all social media platforms at Mr. Dubsy. You can catch me on Sportsgrid nearly every day, I guess. I got a podcast on Props US as well, and do a little bit on the social side for Talk Golf and to me. But, mate, viewer discretion. You sign up to follow Dubsies, you're in for quite the eye-opener. But week to week, we're back in winners, and that is the beauty of the sports betting world right now, especially the golf world. So much to bet on. We absolutely love them. We've been on a heater. But, Andrew, anytime, mate, I love jumping on here, talking shop with yourself, cutting it up. Great start to the back half of the year, mate.
I appreciate your time. Best luck, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, brother. Have a good one.